In this video, we are going to learn how to build this URL Shortener application. As you can see, this is a full stack application. By the way, we're not going to use any API external. This is a full stack application. So how it works is very simple. I'm going to copy this long URL, copy that, paste that this input right here, click sorted URL. As you can see, we have this beautiful loading animation. And then I can copy this link. As you can see, the view is 0 right now, as you can see. And then if I click that link, as you can see, it should be open my block, right? It's open that. And then here, the view, when I refresh, it's updated. Now is one view. I can copy that again, paste that right here. And now we should see the view, it should be 2. Let's refresh and 2 views, right? Really simple. We are going to use Next.js 14. We're going to use Prisma and also store the data into the PostgreSQL. All right, so that's for the intro for this video. Hopefully this video will be fun for you. And yeah, let's get started. Let's start from generate Next.js application. So we can say npx create next app at lattice. And for the application name, I'm going to say URL Shortener. Hit enter. It will asking you some question. TypeScript yes, ESLint yes. Tailwind yes, source directory I'm going to say no, app router yes, import alias I'm going to say no. It will install all the dependency, just wait for that. Okay, great, it's done. So let's open the cd into the URL Shortener. And then from here, I'm going to open inside Visual Studio Code. It's going to be open the VS Code like this. All right, so let's first open the page.tsx. And here, basically, I just want to remove all this div. Let's just grab all of this and then just put a div right now, or maybe main. And then here, I want to say class name mx2auto to make it on center. And the maximal width, I want to say, I'm going to do width, let's say XL like this, which is 36 RAM. And also for the padding vertically, I'm going to say 12 for the medium and more. Let's say padding vertically into 24, just like that. So inside in here, let's put a div, and this div should be have class name space. Let's do space y into, I'm gonna say 2, right? And also the text, it should be on the center. Inside this space y2 here, I'm gonna put heading 1, and inside in here, I'm gonna say URL Shortener. Just like that. Let's add some class name on this heading one. I'm going to say text to 3XL for the medium and more. I'm going to increment that text into 4XL. And also the font, I'm going to say bold. Just like that. And down here, let's put some summary here. Let's do shorten. Let's say your URLs and share them easily, just like that. Let's add class name here for the medium and more. I'm going to say text to, let's say large, just like that. And let's take a look. I'm going to run that on the browser, npm run dev. Let's remove this image, and then let's take a look. It will open localhost 3000. Here we go. Let's close this final project here, or maybe let's leave it like that. And just still compiling down here. Let's wait for that. And then as you can see, we have this URL Shortener and also the description down here. Look really cool. And next, let's install Shadcn because we are going to use some input and button from the Shadcn. Go to UI.shadcn.com and we are going to install on the Next.js application. So we're going to use this command right here, open that into another terminal and paste that right here, npx Shadcn add lattice init. It will asking you some question. Let's click New York and neutral CSS variable, say yes, and it will generate the component.json, also modify your Tailwind config. Also, I believe we have lib folder, right? Cool. So there's a couple component that we are going to use, which is, I'm going to say npx Shadcn add lattice. I'm going to add button, also input. Hit enter. It will create the components folder, and inside that we have UI folder. And right here, UI folder, and then here we have button and input. This is a component that we already installed, right? Cool. So I think let's just close this terminal. So now inside the components folder, I'm going to create one file called URL Shortener container.tsx. We can say rfc, and then I'm going to say URL Shortener and then container, right? So we are going to render this container on the page right here. So we can say URL Shortener container. So inside this component, we are going to create two components basically, which is shorten form. So let's do that in the inside the component folder. We're going to do shorten form, shorten form.tsx. And also we are going to create another thing, which is URL list, like that. Let's do rfc, change the name to URL list, like that. And also inside the shorten URL, we can say rfc, change the name to shorten, like that. So let's import that on this container. So inside of this div, I'm going to import the shorten form, also the URL list, like that. So now we should see this shorten form and URL list, right? So let's first working with the form. Let's close another thing here. So let's remove this div here. I'm going to returning form, like that, and I'm going to remove the action. Basically, I'm not going to give you the best way how to handle form in this video. I just want to showing you how the shorten works. So in here, I'm going to do div, and inside this div, I'm going to say class name to space y to 4, right? And I'm going to render the input in here. So let's do input, come from the UI/input, and also we have the button. So let's do button, like that, and this is going to be shorten URL, like that. So let's save, and now as you can see, we have this beautiful input field and also with the button. So let's make the button a little bit bigger. So I can say class name to width full. Also the padding, I'm going to do 2. Also, let's do the type, it should be submit. All right, look great. So now inside this form, I'm going to say class name to margin bottom 4, like that. And also inside this input right here, I'm going to do class name height to 12. All right, I think we need to add this space right here. So on the main, let's go to page.tsx right here. I'm going to set the space y into 6. It's going to give a space between this div right here, which is the title, and also this container. So we have this space right here. Cool. Let's go back to the form, and inside this input in here, I'm going to add let's set the type into URL. Also, I'm going to say placeholder into, let's say enter URL to shorten. And let's set this input field, it should be require, like that. So now if I click this, as you can see, this field is required. So now what I'm going to do is I like to just showing the value on the console. That's how I basically working with the form. So let's first go to console, and I want to just make sure when I click shorten, the value is going to be on the console. So let's copy this link, put that right here. Of course, now nothing happened. As you can see, the browser is reload. So we need to handle the form submission right here. So we can say on submit right here. Let's say on submit, set equals to handle. Let's do handle submit, like that. And then let's create the function handle submit on the top right here. So we can say const handle submit set equals to, I'm going to say arrow function in here. And the first thing I'm going to prevent default the submission. So I can say E right here. The event should be have type called, let's say react.form event, like that. So here I can say E dot prevent default. It will prevent the reload, so we don't get any reload. So in here, what we are going to do is basically on this input, I want to set the value to the state. So let's go to state here, and I'm going to create a URL, right? Let's say URL is going to be uppercase URL like that, and it's going to be string. Of course, we need to import the useState because we're using useState in here. We need to change this component into client component. If you're not doing that, it should be error on the browser. Alright, so by default it should be empty string like that. And then here for the value, we're going to set that to URL. And then for the onChange, let's do onChange, set it equals to, in here I'm going to grab the event. And then let's set the URL into e.target.value. Just like that. So we get the value on this URL state. So now let's try to console log the URL. Let's save. Then if I typing, let's copy this link right here, paste that right here, click sort URL. As you can see, we get the result on the console. That means our form is work right now. Super cool, great. Next, let's working with the URL list. Let's styling this a little bit. Alright, so inside this div, basically I'm going to put heading to, and then let's do resend URLs like that. And then inside the heading to here, I'm going to add class name, text to, let's say 2XL. And also for the font, I want to say bold. Margin bottom, I'm going to do 2. Right, so we have this resend URLs, cool. And down here, I'm going to render UL for the list of the URL. So in this UL, I'm going to say class name space y22. I found this space y or space x will really helpful because I always use display flags to add gap to basically add the space between the children right here. But I found this space y2 is really helpful for adding space between the children. So I use that a lot on my project right now. So let's do UL, and then inside in here, I'm going to put li for list item. And this li, I'm going to say class name to, let's say flex, item to center, also the gap, I'm going to do 2, right? And inside this li, basically, I'm going to put three tag. So first it's going to be the URL, the link, the copy icon, and also the view right here. So let's do with link first. So let's do a link right here. It's going to become from next link like that. So now I just want to copy this link, for example, like that. And the href is going to be good to that link like that, right? And after link, we have a div right here. This div should be go to on the right. That's why I put the flex right here, and the justify to between. So basically we'll push this link on the left and this div on the right. So let's put a button right here. So we can do button like that. And this button here should be have like, let's do icon for now. And as you can see, the icon should be on the right and the link should be on the left. That's why we set that to flex and justify between right here. Inside this button here, I'm going to render copy icon. So let's do copy icon, come from the Lucid React. And let's add some class name in here. And I'm going to do the width into, let's say 4. And also the height, I'm going to set that to 4. And for this button, I want to basically remove the background and etc. As you can see, we have this background, right? Let's remove that. So we can use variant ghost basically. So here I'm going to say variant into, let's say ghost like that. And also I'm going to say size to icon to make sure this should be on the icon size, it's a little bit more small. And also for the class name, I'm going to say class name. Let's say the text into mute, let's say mute of foreground. And also when I hover that, I want to, the background is mute, just like that. Right. So let's try. If I hover, as you can see, look like that. Basically add a span right here for some reason the copy icon is not rendered, we have this pen right here. So let's do copy URL. And for the class name here, I'm going to say source only. Just like that. Now it's not going to be rendered because the icon is works. Alright, and also under the button here, I'm going to create another icon, which is the view icon, right? So under the button, let's do span. I'm going to use span tag right here. And then I'm going to say class name to flex, and the item, it should be center, just to make sure the icon and the text, it should be on center. So because in here, I'm going to render the eye icon like that. And the eyes icon, it should be have class name height 4 and width also 4. Just like that. And here we have the views number. I can say 100 views like that. So now as you can see, we have something like this. The button should be on the top and the views should be on the bottom. So let's fix that problem. So basically inside this div, we can do class name flex and item center to make sure everything should be on center. All right, as you can see, it's look more better right now, right? We have the link, we have the button, and also this one here. I think I want to add some gap between the copy and views. So here we can do gap into, I'm going to say 3. All right, cool. Let's add some class name on this URL. So we can do class name. And the text, I like to say blue because this is a link, so user can click that. As you can see, it's a link. And then here I'm going to add the target into underscore blank. That means if I click that link, it should be open in new tab, right? So let's see, right? Cool. If I click, it will open on the new tab. Nice. So I think we're done with all the styling, right? All right, so I think we're done with all the styling. So let's now working with the logically how to basically add the shorten URL functionality. So the first thing what we're gonna do is I just like to maybe add a comment first, right? So I can do git add all, and let's do git commit -m for the message. So I'm gonna say finish the UI. Like that. So let's as you can see, it's now clean. And then let's working with the backend stuff and also with the integration. So because we are using Prisma, so I want to put my I just changed my theme of the system to dark mode, and I get this problem here. I think that's because my global CSS is not updated, right? We need to just remove all this right here, the root and etc. Let's save and just make sure we do npm run dev right now, and it will fix that problem, I believe. Let's do npm run dev and let's refresh, and yeah, that's clean right now. Cool. So next, let's install Prisma and set up that. So basically, I have this blog post right here. So the link I'm going to put on the description, you can just access that. And basically, it is really helpful for you if you want to learn how to integrate Prisma with a Next.js application. So yeah, after we create the Next.js application, now we need to install the Prisma. So let's copy that command and then paste that to the terminal and hit enter. After we install that, we need to initialize the Prisma. So you can do npx prisma init. It will basically create the Prisma folder, and inside the folder we have this schema.prisma. And also it will create .env file. So let's try to do that. npx prisma init. And then as you can see, now we have the Prisma folder and schema prisma, also .env. Cool. And then next thing is we need to update our env file, right? Just make sure we have the name right here and also the password and whatever the place that you want to get your database. So I have the local host, so I want to open that like this, and then let's stop. So basically, let's go to server settings, change the password, and basically my password is same like the default value here, and the user is going to be Postgres. So let's start, and then my password is this one, and the user is Postgres, like that. And for database, I'm going to change that to maybe URL DB or something like that. Doesn't really matter. All right, we have the database updated. So now what we need to do, let's go back. The next thing is we need to define the schema. As you can see, this is the example. But of course, we are going to create another model. So let's go to schema Prisma. And the model that we are going to create is called URL, like that. Right? So in this URL, we have, of course, you have ID. ID should be string, and let's add ID. It's going to be the default, and by default we have CUID, just like that. And also we have the original link or original URL, and it's going to be string, like that. Also we have sort, let's say sort code, it's going to be string as well. And also we have the created at, it's going to be date time, and then the default value, I'm going to set that to now, like that. Also we have the visits, it's going to be integer, and the default is going to be 0. Let's say default and 0, just like that. Right, after we create the models right here, so let's scroll it down, we need to say npx prisma generate. So let's copy this command, go back and hit enter. As you can see, just wait for that, and it's done. Cool. And then next we need to push that schema into the database. So let's paste that right here, npx prisma db push. It will push the schema on the database. So now we can open the studio. This is optional, so let's copy that and run the Prisma Studio. Now we should open localhost 5555 right here, and we have the URL models. And inside in here, as you can see, we have ID, original URL, also sort code, also create at, and visit. Cool. Let's go back, and then here's next we need to install the Prisma client to basically connecting our backend stuff to the front end stuff. So let's copy this command right here. Copy that. Just want to close the Prisma Studio. Let's do npm install Prisma client. After that, we need to create the lib folder and then create this db.ts file. Copy that, paste that right here. It will, as you can see, create the db.ts file. It's empty right now, so we can just copy this code right here. Right, copy that, paste right here. This code is basically will ensure that only one instance of Prisma client is created and reused across your application. This is just for the development mode. Right, so next, I think this is how we get the data on the client, right? So I think we're done. Cool. So now let's try to run npm run dev. Let's now create the road. So here inside the app folder, I'm going to create a folder called API. This is for API stuff. And inside the API, I'm going to create a folder called Shortener, like that. And inside the Shortener, I'm going to create road.tsx. Basically road.ts. So in here, let's say export. I'm going to say async function. The name of the function, it should be post because we are going to make a post request, like that. And here the parameter should be request, like that. And the type of the request should be next request, come from the next server. And inside in here, let's do return next response, come from next server. And then in here, let's do .json, like that. And let's just render the sort code right here. So let's say sort code, like that. And then let's first grab the URL. If user make a request, user should be send URL. So we can do const grab the URL, set equals to await for the request.json, right? But that's how we get the URL request from the client, right? After we get the URL, we need to const I'm going to say Shortener URL set equals to await for Prisma. It's going to become from the libdb prisma.url. We are going to create, and then here I'm going to create, let's send the data, and then let's send the original URL into URL. Let's come from the user, and also we send the sort code like that. The sort code is going to be a random number, so we are going to create that from the nano ID. So let's do const sort code set equals to, we are going to basically install the npm install the nano ID. Nano ID is basically just like a UUID. It will generate a random number, right? After we install that, we can use that right here, nano ID. And I'm going to set that to 8 for the random number. It's going to be a character like that. And also let's put the sort code right here because we have same name, just put it like that. And in here, I'm going to say Shortener URL dot sort code. All right, so I think we're done with this post request right here. So let's go back to the let's see form right here, and let's try to make a post request on the route that we already create right here. So we are going to use try and catch. So let's do try, and down here we catch the error, and then we say finally down here. Right, for the try, I'm going to say const. This is basically just normal how the way you post on the API. So we can say response set equals to await. We're going to use just normal fetch right here into /API /shorten, right? And then let's say comma and then object. This is basically we specify the method. Method's going to be post request. Let's do post like that. Let's set the headers. Let's do headers. It should be say object right here. I'm going to say content type. It should be, let's do content dash type. It should be application/json, application/json. And also for the body, let's send the body here, and we are gonna send the URL. Before that, we need to stringify the data. So we can say json.stringify, and then let's send the URL. Of course, this URL is gonna become from the state right here. Because we're using await, we need to specify this function. It should be async function. After this fetch here, we are going to await for the response.json like that. And then I'm going to set the URL back to empty string, right? Because when we submit, we need to the value back to empty right here after we click the Shortener URL. And then next, I think we're done. And then also for the error right here, I'm going to say just console.error. I'm going to say error shortening URL and put the error right here. Let's say comma and then the error. So now let's try to make a post request. Just make sure we restart the server npm run dev, and then let's go back to the browser and open the network to see the response right here when we basically make a post request. Right, cool. So let's try. I'm going to copy this long URL, paste that right here, click sort URL. As you can see down here, let's make a post request. Cool. And we have this response back. Cool. It works. So now let's open the npx Prisma Studio. Let's see on the database that we have new data. As you can see, we have one data right here with the original URL, the sort code, and the created ad. And the visitor is 0 right now. All right, cool. So it works. So now let's try to fetch the data and render that on the recent URLs right here. Before that, of course, we need to create another API to get all the data. So now here on the app, I'm going to create another folder inside the API folder, which is, I'm going to call that URLs like that. And inside that we have route.ts. Great. So in here, I'm going to create the function. Let's do export async function. And the function name, it should be get, because we are going to make a get request in here. Just make sure this is a get request. And for the request, we don't need to get anything in here. Just get all the data, right? So inside it here, we get the try and catch. Let's do catch. We grab the error and like that. Cool. So in this try, I'm going to say cons URLs set equals to, let's go with await Prisma. Let's import the Prisma.url find many, because we are going to get all the data. So we are going to do find many and then order by. Let's say order by. I'm going to say created at disk ending. So the new data will be on the top, right? And for the take, I'm going to set that to 5. So takes basically the maximal number of data that you want to showing. For example, here, if you set that to 10, it will showing the 10 data right here. If you set that to 2, of course, every time you add the new data here, it's going to be added right here, but always to the recent URL will be showing right here, right? I'm going to set that to 5. And then next here, I'm going to say return next response .json. I'm going to send the URLs just like that. If something error happen, I'm going to say console error. Let's do error. It's going to be string. Let's say error. Let's do fetching URLs like that, and put the error variable in this console error. And down here, I'm going to say return next response .json, and then I'm going to send the error. It's going to be, let's say, internal server, let's say error. And then here I'm going to send the status into, let's say 500. The status, it should be outside the, let's say it's going to be outside in here. Let's do that. Status 500. Okay, cool. I think we're done with the route. And now let's go to the, let's go back to the page right here. So URL container and URL list. This is basically, we are going to fetch the data. All right, so inside the component, we are going to create a function called, let's say cons fetch URLs like that. Set equals to is going to be async, because we are going to make a fetch request in here, because that's why we need to wait until we get the data, right? So let's say with try and catch. Try and then catch. We catch the error. And then in this try, I'm going to say cons response set equals to await. We await until this fetch done. Let's say fetch into /API/ what we create in here, URLs. Cool. Like that. And then down here, we can say cons, we get the data, set equals to await response.json. Just like that. Cool. So now let's put this data into the state so we can render that down here. Let's create the state. So I'm going to give a name, the state URLs like that. Just make sure this is uppercase URLs like that. The use state, of course, when we use use state, of course, we need to change this component, entire this component to client, say use client. And it's going to be type string like that. By default is empty string like that. And down here, we can say set URLs into this data. If something wrong happen, we need to just console error. So let's do console.error. And then I'm going to say error fetching URLs like that, and put the error in here just like that. Cool. So now we need to run this fetch URL every time user refresh the browser. So of course we are going to use effect like that. And then let's run that every time. The first time user refresh the browser, of course, let's say empty object for the dependency. Right. So now if I console log the URLs, we should get the data on the console. Let's go to console and then see, as you can see, we have this data right here. Cool. So now let's map through the data down here. So let's remove the console, and then we need to map that data on this li. So basically, let's grab all the li right here, cut that out, and then map to the urls.map. We grab the individual URL, and then here I'm going to return that li. And of course, we need to use a key right here. So let's say key set equals to url dot it should be id. We get some warning here. Oh yeah, that's because URL is not a string by default. This is an array. So let's just try to change that to. I think I'm going to create another type in here. So let's do type to URL. Set that equals to an object, and here I'm gonna set that to ID to basically string, and the sort code also string. Also we have origin URL. That's gonna be also string, and the visits is gonna be number, right? And I'm gonna put that type on this useState, so I can say URL of array like that. So of course the default value is going to be empty array like that. Okay, so now it's gonna be works. You can see we get the url.id, and then in here, of course, we need to render the URL dot, of course, going to be sort code. But let's try to see. We just get the code right here. Of course, we're not going to do that. We need to render also the link. So I think let's create another function to handle that link. So let's say const shortener URL, so that equals to this function is like a code, right? And this code is going to be string, and this function, it will return the, let's say, process.env dot, I'm going to say next public underscore base underscore URL. And then for slash, of course, I'm going to render the code right here. Just like that. So we can use this shortener URL right here and wrap that code inside the shortener URL. From now, it's not going to be works. As you can see, we get undefined. And then now we need to create this next public base URL on the environment variable. So let's put it right here, set equals to, by default, I'm going to set that to this localhost 3000. When we upload it on the online, on the Versal or anything, of course, we need to change this value into that domain name. All right, as you can see, we have this localhost 3000 and then slash the code. Cool. And then now let's go back to user URL list right here. And then what we need to change next is the view, right? The view is going to become from the API. So let's change this 100 right here into, it's going to be URL.visit like that. So let's try to see. We need to add this space right here between the icon and the views right here. So let's go back in this flex. I'm going to add a gap into, let's say 2. And now we have this nicely space. Cool. So let's try to click this one. Of course, nothing will be happen, but we get the value. Really weird. So let's go back. Anyway, we need to change this href here into this URL shortener right here. We need to copy that, and then we need to add / and then render the code / code, right? Let's try to click now. It should be open localhost 3000 and then the code sort right here that we have, right? For now, it's going to be empty because we don't handle that page. So let's handle that. So inside the app right here, we need to create a folder called, I'm going to give a name sort code, just like that, right? Inside sort code, I'm going to say page.tsx. So in here, I want to say RFC, and for the page name, I'm going to give a name redirect page, just like that. And of course, it's going to be uppercase R. All right, we get the redirect page right there. Cool. So now let's create the interface right here. So I'm going to say interface call redirect page props. And in here, I'm going to say params. And these params, it should be have sort, let's say sort code. And this sort code, it should be string. So this sort code is basically the name of the folder that we create in here. If you create another name, just make sure the name is same. So now we can grab the params. And this params, it should be have type redirect page props, like that. So now let's try to render the sort code. Here I can say const sort code set equals to params. All right. So I just want to render that right here. So I can say sort code, just like that. Save. Let's take a look. As you can see, we render the name of the code right here. That means we successfully grab the URL right here. Okay, cool. So the next thing we need to do is let's find the sort code here on the database. So we can use const URL set equals to await for Prisma. Of course, the Prisma is going to become from the libdb folder. Prisma dot, we can say URL dot, and then find unique function. And then in here, you can say where the sort code should be have same name with the sort code from the URL right here, right? If there's same name, of course, we get the value on this URL. Because we're using await in here, of course, we need to change this function into a sing function, just like that. As you can see, we get this error here that say sort code string is not sendable to tab URL where unique input. That means that this sort code is not unique. That's why we cannot use this find unique in this case right here. So let's go to schema.prisma. As you can see, the source code is not unique. So we need to add the unique in here to make sure the sort code is always unique. Now, of course, it's not works. We need to, every time we change the schema Prisma, we always need to say npx prisma db push. Right? After we're doing that, hopefully now we don't get this error. Just wait for that. It will push that new value. Of course, I'm going to say yes. And as you can see, now it's gone. Cool. So now we can say npm run dev again. All right. We get the URL, right? If some cases we don't get the URL, that means the URL don't exist on the database. So we can say just return a div right here. And I'm going to say maybe 404. I'm going to say URL not found, just like that. And then down here, if we get the URL, we don't need to return anything here. We can say redirect. We are going to use next navigation. And then I'm going to say URL dot original URL, because the reason we access this link because we need to redirect that into the original URL, right? So we're done. And then now let's try to reload here. And hopefully it will redirect me to the original URL that we have, which is this one, all right? This is the original URL. Let's wait. I think it's still compiling or something happened on here. Yeah, as you can see, it redirect me to this blog post. And anyway, if I try to refresh, the visit is not updated, right? Wait, right? We need to, every time the link access, we need to update these visits. How do we do that? It's super simple. In here, we can say await. Basically, we need to update the visits right here. We need to say await prisma.url.update. And here we need to update where the ID is equal to url.id that we get from here. And then we need to send the data. Let's say data. And then here I'm going to say visit. Let's increment that by 1. Increment by 1. Just like that. So now let's try. I'm going to close this one. And let's try to refresh. Let's make it small, which is 100 maybe. Yeah, this one. And now I'm going to click this. If I click, it access that and it trigger this Prisma update right here. It will increment this view. As you can see, now we have one view. If I click that again, it open that like so, and then if I refresh it to view. All right, super cool. The next thing I'm going to showing you is let's try to make this copy button works. Let's go back into the URL list, and this button I'm going to add on click event. Let's do on click set equals to, I'm going to say handle copy URL. Let's create a function. Let's copy the function name and do that in here. I'm going to say const handle copy URL set equals to arrow function like that. And in this function, I want to grab the code. The code is basically string, right? Let's go back here. And if we need to add property in this function, we need to use arrow function like this. And then put the URL dot sort code. We need to send the sort code in this handle copy URL like that. Cool. So here I'm going to say const set equals to, I'm going to say full URL set equals to, basically I'm going to use the Shortener URL function and send the code, right, that we have on the top right here. So here basically we get the full URL, and then let's say navigator dot clipboard dot write text, right? And then we are going to send this full URL on this clipboard, and then we can say dot then after that we need to run this callback. All right, so first I'm going to set the copy it, set copy it to true, right? And then let's create the set copy it state right here. So I'm going to say state call set to be copied like that. And then for the type, it should be Boolean. Say Boolean by default is false, right? If we click that handle copy, we set the set copy to true. So now let's scroll it down, and we need to change this copy icon basically. So now let's try to copy that. And then here I'm going to say if the copy true, I want to render, let's say using question mark in here, I want to render this icon, else this icon. So if the copy true, I want to use check icon. Let's do check right here. So now as you can see, if I click, it changes that to check icon. Of course, we need to make that back to false. Here's, we can use a set timeout. So here I'm going to say set timeout. We're going to set the set copied here back to false after, I'm going to say 3000 millisecond, which is 3 seconds. So now as you can see, it will back that to, let's say click, it will back that to the copy icon after 3 seconds, right? Cool. So now let's try to shorten another URL. Let's click that. And we don't get the result, right? Unless we refresh the browser. All right, so as you can see, if I click this, all of this copy change. We need to specify the code that we need to copy basically. So here's, I'm going to create another state to handle that problem. So here I'm going to say copy URL. Let's say copy URL. And then for the value, set copy URL like that. And it's going to be string. And by default, it's empty string. Right. So if I click copy, I want to set the copy URL into the code, right? And after 3 seconds, I want to remove that as well. So let's copy URL back to empty string. And we are going to use this copy URL value on this condition right here. Is if copy it true and if copy URL set it equals to URL dot sort code. Right? If there's equals, we need to change that to check. Otherwise, just make sure this is a copy icon. If I click this, as you can see, it changed, right? This one is still on the copy icon. Right, cool. I believe this is work. If I copy that, paste that right here, as you can see, that works. Nice. So now I found some bugs going on. So I'm going to copy this long URL, right? Copy that, paste that right here. If I click Shorten URL, nothing happened. If I refresh it right here, right? So there's not automatically go to the recent URLs. So that's the problem. So to fix that problem, first we need to go to the container. And then in here, I'm going to create another state. So let's do state call. I'm going to give a name refresh. Let's say refresh key or something like that. Let's say refresh key. And this refresh key, let's say use state, is basically a number. By default, it's 0, like that. And then if we use state, remember, we always need to change the component to client. So let's do use client, like that. Right here, I'm going to create a function called handle URL Shortener, like that. Let's say Shortener, set equals to an arrow function. And here I'm going to say set refresh key into, we grab the previous value. And then here I'm going to say previous plus 1. Right. And then now we need to send this refresh key on this URL list. Let's do key set equals to refresh key. That means every time this state change, the URL list will render, it will automatically fetch new data. All right. So now we need to send this handle URL Shortener in this shorten form. Let's do like that. And in this shorten form, let's create an interface called shorten form props. And let's put the function name, and it's going to be function that return void, just like that. And now let's grab the function name, put that in this props, and then it's going to be have type called sort form props. So now we can use this handle shorten inside this function here. So basically, after we successfully make a post request, we need to run this handle URL shortened, like that. Right? So let's try. I'm going to copy this link here. Just make sure everything up to date. I'm going to refresh. Let's paste that right here and click shorten URL. And as you can see, it is updated. All right, cool. So the next thing is, I think I'm going to add some card on this li. Let's go back to make it a little bit look nice. And then this li here, let's add some class name. So let's set the background into card. Let's do background card. And also I'm going to set the rounded to medium, like that. And the text, I'm going to set the card foreground, just like that. So let's do border. So we have the border right here. And now let's add the, I think we need to add padding, something like that. So we can say padding to, let's say 3. As you can see, now it's more better, right? Look pretty cool. So the next thing is I'm going to add loading skeleton when we click this shorten URL. I want to disable the button and also add the skeleton. So here on the shorten form, I'm going to create another state. Let's do state call is loading, right? The is loading, it should be Boolean. Boolean by default is going to be false, like that. And we need to trigger the set loading on this handle submit. So the first thing is we need to set the loading into true in here. And then we need to set the loading back to false after we doing this try and catch. Finally, we set the loading into false, just like that. And now we need to add the loading on the button. So let's do this button here. I'm going to set the if the is loading is true, I'm going to set the shortening happen here. Else, let's do shorten URL, just like that. In the button, if the is loading is true, I'm going to set the disable to true in this button, just like that. All right, cool. And then the next thing is I also want to add loading on the URL list right here. So let's try to create another state call is loading, like that. And the is loading, it should be Boolean. By default is false, like that. And now we need to set the is loading to true when we fetch that right here. Let's do true. And we set that to false in this finally down here. So let's say set is loading back to false, like that. Cool. So now here we need to handle that. If is loading true, I want to render the skeleton in here. So basically, I just want to copy and paste my skeleton loading in here. Let's paste that right here. Right, so let's try to set the is loading to true. And then as you can see, we got the loading right here, right? The skeleton loading. Looks super clean. Let's set that to is loading now. If I refresh, as you can see, we got the beautiful skeleton loading. So now let's try again. I'm going to make sure this is work. I'm going to copy the long URL, paste that right here, click Shortener URL. As you can see, it's really fast, but we get the loading skeleton, right? So here I'm going to copy that, and then here I'm going to paste that to the incognito browser. And then hopefully now we get the, as you can see, we get the block, and then of course the view, it should be increment by 1. As you can see, we have 1 view. Alright, cool. So now you know basically how the URL Shortener works. And yeah, we implement a lot of things in the video. We implement the view, the copy, the Shortener URL here. And if you like this video, just don't forget to just give a like and just drop another comment on this video. So thank you so much for watching, guys. See you on the next video. Bye.